What up, dude bros? I'm Frank. This is a video review of the Vortex VTX Pyragon. Vortex is back, bros. Hasbro's re-releasing the old Vortex series with this new Vortex VTX paint theme. The same discs compatible with the old discs, and the first three blasters in the Vortex VTX series are actually just direct reskins. So if you're familiar with the old Pyragon, this is the same blaster with a new paint scheme. So on to the review of the Vortex VTX Pyragon. Included is the blaster, the giant magazine, quite a few discs, and the instructions. The Pyragon is a spring-powered, pump-action, slam-fire-enabled, magazine-fed blaster. External overview starting up at the front. Of course, Vortex blasters don't use in-strike attachment nozzles, so you cannot put on front barrel attachments or anything like that. Right here is the priming handle. Again, it's a spring-powered blaster to prime, pull back, push forward. Prime weight is surprisingly low, but the Vortex blasters shoot at a lower muzzle velocity. So the spring power is a little reduced, so it's like priming back a really weak Nerf blaster. Up on the top of the blaster, you have this big, giant in-strike tactical rail running along the entire top, so you can put on all sorts of your tactics, multiple scopes, whatever you want. However, that is the only in-strike tactical rail on the blaster, although there's really not any other space for one. Moving back, you have this orange slide right here, which is a manual disc release. If you have a chambered disc and you have a jam, you're not able to pull the trigger, something's wrong, this little disc release is sort of like the access door in a traditional Nerf blaster. But instead of opening the access door and shoving your finger in, you can just hit this slide, and it shoots out the disc. I fired this blaster quite a few times for my standard testing procedure and did not have any jams or malfunctions, but you might need this disc release if you're using old, worn out, or maybe wet discs or something like that. Moving back further, this orange switch on the handle is the magazine release, and it's mirrored on the other side of the blaster, full ambi bro, and when you press that, the magazine will drop. The included magazine holds 40 discs, which is pretty high capacity. But the loading of this drum is a little unusual, and you initially load the top portion as well as the first chamber down here. After you completely load the first lower chamber, you hit this little switch, and you rotate to the second lower chamber. After you load the second, you move to the third and the fourth. There are 4 lower chambers and 1 upper. It's worth noting loading is a little weird with this multi-chamber thing, but after you have it fully loaded with 40 discs and you put it in, you're able to fire 40 times continuously. You don't have to mess with this little chamber switching system. There's a spring or something on the inside to automatically let it rotate, so when it's empty, it lets it shoot 40 continuously without manual input. Only the loading process requires hitting this little switch. It's also worth noting there's this little spring release on the top of the magazine, and that corresponds with this little peg on the inside of the magazine well. So when you strike the magazine release, the drum actually ejects a little bit from the blaster, and that prevents jamming or anything, so it'll just gravity drop, and I think it's tactical. So if you're going fast and you want to quickly drop your drum, it's not going to jam up or add friction in the magazine well. Super small detail, but worth noting. The Pyragon includes this 40-round drum, but it is compatible with the other Vortex magazines, such as this glow mag. So if you want something a little slimmer and lower profile or whatever, you can. Moving back to the trigger, the release of the trigger is a pretty standard spring trigger. This blaster does have slam fire, so you can hold down the trigger and pump, so when the priming handle hits the forward position, it fires. That allows you to shoot at a higher rate of fire. One little odd thing about the trigger though, the Vortex blaster, just like the old Vortex blasters, will not allow you to dry fire it. The locks in the Vortex blasters are just a little weird. I'm not able to prime the blaster without a magazine loaded. And if you insert an empty magazine, you're not able to pull the trigger to dry fire. The Vortex spring systems work on this torsion spring system, and it's different than normal Nerf blasters. And they do this because that system would damage itself because there's really no air restrictor. It's more mechanical propulsion. So they prevent you from pulling the trigger if the disc isn't loaded to prevent the blaster from breaking itself. I pointed out because you don't want to prime this blaster empty and put it away because that spring will remain primed as you store it, and you can wear out the spring and your performance could drop. So just make sure to slide in one disc and then fire it into the ground or something before you store it. But that's it for the trigger and firing. Back here is a stock attachment point compatible with standard Nerf stocks. I don't have any stocks that match this blue and green paint scheme, but it's cool that they have the stock attachment point so you can attach your favorite stock or whatever. And back to the grip, it's a large oversized grip. I complain about grips all the time because I'm an adult and I have huge hands. This is a really comfortable grip, yet not in a weird way that makes it difficult for a smaller hand to use. Ergonomic smooth, just look at it, just look at it. Awesome. So those are the externals of the Pyragon. Let's see it fire. Firing the Pyragon is a lot of fun. Like I mentioned, the drum will release all 40 discs continuously. So you can slam fire away 40 discs. Pretty high capacity. And I put the Vortex VTX Pyragon up in my chronograph and achieved an average velocity of 45 feet per second, which cannot or should not be responsibly compared to the 70 FPS par that we can expect out of elite blasters or dart blasters. Vortex discs are designed very differently than darts. They're designed to shoot at a lower velocity that just carry, kind of like frisbees. Imagine a football flying through the air and a frisbee. A frisbee can travel the same range at a much lower velocity because it drifts like a bird or a plane. It's a bird, it's a plane, it's a Vortex VTX disc. The firing characteristics of the VTX Pyragon are pretty much exactly the same as I remember of the original Pyragon. However, I don't have any of the original Vortex blasters in my studio for direct comparison. And I either didn't own my chronograph or I lost the chrono data, so I can't compare it to the old blasters. However, from memory, the performance is the exact same as the old Vortex blasters. I'm just trying to make this point clear because I don't want you to see this 45 FPS chrono and say, wow, that's way slower than these other 70 FPS blasters. It's just very different. The firing characteristics of these discs are cool. You can ricochet them off walls, and they carry really slowly. It can be really effective, though, if you're in a group of humans shooting at a horde of zombies, and the zombies are trying to dodge and dart track, and they're familiar with the velocity of normal darts, and then a disc is kind of hovering. It can really screw your depth perception up if you're not aware and you're like consciously, okay, that's a disc. Because you'll start to dodge it, and you'll say, like, why isn't it at me yet? It hasn't hit me. Oh, okay. And if you mix it up and you have a little group of rival plus dart plus discs, like, you can be really effective against zombies. Because what's more fun than the traditional slaying of normal zombies? Psychologically mind them. After a mini battle, they're all gonna pull the Jack Sparrow and just be like, I don't know what I'm looking at. Yeah, he does it better than me. I'm not an actor. Fired this blaster quite a few times for my testing procedure and did not have any jams or malfunctions. Smooth operation, standard performance for the Vortex series. Leading to my overall opinion on the Vortex VTX Pyragon, it's definitely positive. I'm really excited that Hasbro's re-releasing the old Vortex series. There was a small part of our community that had kind of an outcry when they discontinued the series, because it's fun to use the discs. They're very different than darts. So my opinion on the Pyragon and its performance within that Vortex series is definitely positive, but it is worth noting Vortex blasters really aren't my style. It's very much a personal opinion, so I'm biased away from them. I prefer the standard Nerf blasters or, dart blasters, and definitely rival blasters because those perform wonderfully. They have a similar range, but also a much higher muzzle velocity. But my opinion on this blaster within its designated role is definitely positive, so I don't want my negative bias towards the Vortex series to sway your purchase decision. But overall, stoked that Hasbro's re-releasing the VTX series. The first 3 blasters that they're releasing are just direct reskins. I have no idea if they're expanding the series and reinventing or inventing new blasters. Although this new paint scheme is super cool. I'm really digging the blue and green, so it wasn't broken before, but they improved it. The Vortex VTX Pyragon is a Target exclusive. I'll leave a purchase link in the description box when it becomes available. And I'd love to hear your feedback. What's your opinion on the re-release of the old Vortex series? Are you interested in using discs compared to darts, and especially the rival rounds? Rival seems to be like kind of the best of everything. It has that extended range, but also a much higher muzzle velocity. So if you're stoked for the Vortex series, I want to hear why, and why would you use that instead of the other options like darts and balls? Balls. But as always, more options on the marketplace, or at least more high-quality options made by Hasbro, makes the marketplace better for us, the consumer. So even if you're not into the Vortex series, it's awesome that it's available. But again, purchase link in the description box below when it's available. That concludes this video review. Hopefully I helped you with that purchase decision. Thanks so much for watching, bros, and as always, stay tactical.